Okay, let's try that one again. Here's everybody who graciously attended. And I want you to know right from the get-go that the terminology that I use in this speech was terminology of the age, and I don't mean to offend anyone. Many of you have never heard of this person before, though in 1966, headlines stated one of the most historical figures, and that the world has lost a great figure. She was a forerunner in the birth control movement and a cornerstone of Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Her name is Margaret Sanger. Perhaps some of you have used Planned Parenthood resources before and had no idea of the history behind the agency. Today I would like to change all that. I became interested in Margaret Sanger when I was a college student in the 1990s. Plus, I have a friend who wishes she had this information. Let us explore how childhood beliefs influence the adult and how one person's life can affect public policy. We will explore controversial issues like eugenics, and are there any racial undertones in the birth control vision? After today, you may discover whether she was an angel of light or an angel of darkness. Born in 1879, the sixth of 11 children, to Michael and Ann Higgins, young Margaret saw firsthand the struggles of a large family in a rural community like Corning, New York. She witnessed the toll that childbirth would have on her mother. Out of 18 pregnancies, only 11 children survived. She witnessed the toll that the social, political policies would have on her father's livelihood of sculpting angels and saints for tombstones. She witnessed the death of her mother to cervical cancer. And she witnessed in later years the death of Sadie Sachs from a self-induced abortion gone awry. This was a pivotal moment in Margaret Sanger's life. Initially, she was of Roman Catholic belief, like her mother, but later in her years, she would align herself with her father's atheistic and socialist beliefs. A fiery, outspoken person, she often struggled with the laws of the land. This led her to flee to England in 1914, where she would embrace Malthusian eugenics. To sum up Malthusian eugenics, they saw that certain members of the population were a drain on the resources of a national life. So, in order to free up those resources, that population needed to be controlled. These were seen as the unfit of society. Who were the unfit? Well, according to Margaret Sanger in her book, The Pivot of Civilization, the unfit were the insane, the epileptic, criminals, prostitutes, paupers, and the mentally defect. She further states that feeble-mindedness in one generation would lead to pauperism or insanity in the next. A popular belief in the turn of the century among socialists, eugenics was seen as a cure for societal ills like famine, poverty, and unwanted pregnancy. Eugenics, literally meaning well-born, was set up into an interrelated system of two aspects of positive and negative eugenics. They believed that in order for the survival of the human race, some preferred population genes would be encouraged to reproduce, and methods like in vitro fertilization, egg transplants, or cloning would be used. Conversely, the unfit population was seen to need to be controlled through methods like abortion, sterilization, or other methods of family planning. Malthusian seeds took a deep root in Margaret Sanger's life. But is there a racial thread in the fabric of Margaret Sanger's vision? Some in the African American community believe that they are the targeted unfit. According to Angela Franks, a noted expert on Margaret Sanger, on her site, angelafranks.com, states that the source of the controversy stems from a letter addressed to Clarence Gamble, who was an administrator of the Negro Project. In the letter, Margaret states, "We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. The minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their most rebellious members." Planned Parenthood responds that this letter was taken out of context. Margaret Sanger was merely concerned about the disproportionate amount of mortality rate among African American women versus white women. Stats showed that at that time, African American women were at a 50% higher risk of death in childbirth. Planned Parenthood points that they have a long history with the Black community. Faye Waterton, an African American, was a former president of Planned Parenthood. They further argue that figures such as Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and Barack Obama, seen here with Cecil Richards, the current president of Planned Parenthood, as evidence that they have a long mutual relationship with the African American community. Others, such as the Life Education and Resource Network, or LEARN, point to 78% of abortuaries are located in or near predominantly minority neighborhoods. Whatever the truth may be, the battle wages on. And the shot heard round the world in this version of history was fired by Margaret Sanger. Today we learn the story of Margaret Sanger. We learn the story behind the story. We learn that her childhood and how nearly a century ago it influenced her adulthood, which later influenced public policy today. Perhaps the scale of time will render a verdict on Margaret Sanger. Perhaps, just perhaps, one of you will tip those scales and determine whether she was an angel of light or an angel of darkness. Thank you. Rob is taking everybody out to dinner. It's 8 minutes long.